You've lately been really pushing OG X Ball to be the main thing. And it
Mhm.
kind of fascinates me because when I see us playing just like the normal 5v5 playing rounds, we're skirmishing, but also when it comes to tournaments, it's kind of the same thing where we're playing basically just rounds of 5v5. Maybe there's a flag or something, but it's very okay, these guys against these guys and then these guys against these guys, and it's just kind of who gets the most wins and they move on from there. But
Mhm.
X Ball in particular, you've been pushing that a lot more as opposed to this whole just 5v5 thing. Why is that?
Yeah, so five X Ball is the original X Ball was it's still 5 man, but it's a lot more it requires a lot more depth on your roster. So like a 5 man team today that you see at DBS couldn't just sign up to play an original X Ball tournament because you have to have a pretty deep roster, at least 10 people, I'd say. And when original X Ball was like when it first came into the league, not everyone had access to it. So like a team could sign up to play 5 man, or they could sign up to play X Ball, and that's kind of they still have the same model. When you go to NXL, you can play 5 man, which is they call like the race two, or right now we still have a version of X Ball where there's a game clock and 5 people at a time, but you're playing the same team until you reach a final score. Whereas 5 man now, it's more race two. It's like, all right, who's if best out of three is a better way to put it.
Right, right. Just thinking about it in terms of I guess game length versus race two, just how a win plays out. It seems more intimate of a battle, right? Like if you have two teams and it's like best 2 out of 3, it's like okay, obviously best 2 out of 3 wins. That's a classic denotion. But when you're putting like a time frame and you're putting, all right, we're gonna keep going and we're gonna try to rise above the other person, then it's an extra level of like game pressure that I feel
Yeah.
like comes into play, and that uh, I don't remember with three like race to two if there's as much of a time pressure or if you really have to take time into account as much as just hey time to go on again, like when they're done you're on. But
Yeah.
X Ball with that format just seems way more intimate of a battle between two teams.
Yeah, I think so. It's already two halves. So there's two. I think the original X Ball is 25-minute halves. What I'm trying to do with the PNW X Ball League is we're going to do a little different version. We're going to do 20-minute halves, and simply because 25 for people who have never played it, it's a lot.
20
And
minutes is still a lot. Like that's you could
yeah.
cram 4, 5, 6 rounds.
hmm For sure, yeah. I mean, there's been games that have gone both teams are in the double digits. So, and there's a lot more. I wouldn't say a lot more clock management, but clock management is more spread out. So, like now, when you watch like an X Ball NXL event, and you're watching the pros play, a team gets up 3 points, then they're running the clock. You'll hear story time, because they just want to make sure that they're in positions to hold off the attack. And one of the fun parts about original X Ball is there's two halves, so you get down into that clock management twice at a minimum. If it's one of the first points in either half, you can't really consider the score unless you're up 5 or 7 points. But if you're only up by 2 points, you should still be attacking. You should still be making opportunities to put more points on the board, because a long drawn out point could be the difference between whether or not you keep the momentum or lose it.
You don't think about that with race to two. You're kind of just in this mindset of just like, all right, we need to win, and the best way to win is be aggressive, and we don't have to think about anything else in that. But when we're talking about 20-minute halves, so a 40-minute game of paintball, 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 how are we going to, adjust ourselves to win within the given situation?
Mm-hmm.
Then you're asking much more of the team as a whole. You're asking for more nuanced strategy. And when you mentioned depth of the player base, like that makes me think less about having just, more people on your team, but also like, I mean, everyone's got their strengths. Everyone's got like the thing that they're good at that they lean into.
Mm-hmm.
And in those given situations. It's kind of like football, right? Where it's like you can, all right, now that we're within this situation of the game, then we can put this guy and this guy and this guy, and this is why, because we need to make this exact specific thing. Like it gets way more nuanced,
Right.
rather than just like a race to two.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that's one of the, at least to me as a person who doesn't like compete all that much, like I said, I'm Division 5, I'm new. Would you say that's one of the biggest challenges for a person that's in my position who wants to move up in these divisions and up in these ranks, is going from this like race to two format to this bigger, more nuanced format that takes a lot more than just, what it takes to win a race to two game?
Yeah. Well, I think it's all kind of the same skill set. Somebody once said the difference between the divisions is the pace at which the game is played. And so with the lower divisions, when they're just playing the race to 2 or 3 man, yeah, points aren't as quick. People aren't making as moves as quickly and capitalizing, but they all are kind of set out to do the same thing, which is find the other team's weaknesses, exploit it, stick to your strengths, and make that happen. And that's pretty easier. It's easier to do in the lower divisions, not only because the teams aren't as strong and there's more opportunities, but you're also only playing them 3 points max. Whereas, upper in the higher divisions, when you're playing the X ball, which is, with the clock, and it's more of a mercy rule thing, you're gonna play teams at least 3 points. There's no way you're gonna play less than 3 points. So just being able to adapt to what the other team's doing, it's just on a different scale. How many times you get a different look versus versus not really.
How did PNW X Ball start? Was that something that you wanted to bring to the table for, like, because like our surrounding community right now, we've got a big variance in skill levels. We've got people at my level who are playing local tournaments, and then we've got people higher up divisions, ninjas, uprising. It's big variance. Mm-hmm. So what was the goal for the tournament? Was it to like bring X Ball to all of that and just introduce that? Because again, to me, like, it just seems like such a gauntlet of a play style, especially if you're playing a full tournament of this. It seems like so much compared to a race to 2.
Right. Well, it came about, I've always liked when I have field time to play matches. So like when we were practicing at the indoor a lot, when I played for a DBS team, I was always the guy to be like, hey, let's skip drills today. Let's just play matches, that kind of thing, because I just like the pace. And as paintball started to really develop into what it is now, the games just got so much slower. So like bounce shots, changing the rate of fire, more bunkers. And
chilling, just relaxing,
just sitting back, running the clock. Yeah,
I think it was Dusty who was talking about like zoning is such a big game in paintball, and I know that he's right, but I'm with you where it's like I want to be moving. I want to be like constantly like be engaging in doing something and forcing something. And I swear to God, every time I do that, I always bite the bullet.
Yeah. So yeah, there's the whole zoning up thing. I mean, it still happens in X-Ball, but when you have a gun that shoots 15 balls a second, it's a lot easier to either take a risk to shoot that guy in that's shooting the zone, or make something happen off the break. So yeah, just one day I would think I was on my way to a practice in the airport. I'd got my fair share of free Bloody Marys in from the Alaska Lounge. Shout out the Alaska Lounge. I'm a proud member. And I just half trolled, posted on Facebook, if this post gets 500 likes or whatever, maybe even 1,000, then we'll do an X-Ball tournament at the outdoor. And I tagged Danny, and I didn't even talk to him about it. And he commented, he's like, okay, let's do it. So it was really, I just wanted to do something so that my friends could play. And at the time, I was coaching and stuff too, and just thinking, I've been so fortunate to actually play that format when I used to play for teams in the CXBL, that a lot of people that even play in the pro division now, I couldn't even tell you. I probably less than half have actually played the format, the original X-Ball format. All the new teams you see, I doubt any of them have ever played actual 2 25-minute halves at 15 balls per second. So I just wanted to do something unique. When I was playing in the CXBL, that was the same format, and that's when I really saw the most, got the most out of paintball, because when I was playing with the guys here, the team formerly known as DBS Kids, we would go with less than 10 guys most of the time. And so running 7 guys and playing, 200 points in a weekend, it was just not only the most fun, but for me to develop as a player, it's the most beneficial.
Right, because you're being put through the grinder. You've just got so much pressure on that.
Mm-hmm.
But when you say this, it was the most beneficial for you as a player, besides just sheer volume of games and tournaments that you've played, why do you think this one format really molded you more than other formats? What do you think it comes back to, that just fast pace?
Yeah, I think being a front player, it helped me level the playing field, because I was never the really, really fast guy, and there's always going to be a guy on the other team that's faster than me. The playing field was leveled. All right, you're either going to make the corner or you're not. And if they've got a super fast guy, we can just put 2 guns on it and you won't make the corner. So being able to up my off the break shooting skills, as well as not always having to be the one, I could still play an insert role and be effective. And I think that's why I liked it so much personally.
Because it put you in a new situation that you had to figure out, how are we going to beat them under these conditions?
Right. I mean, there was definitely times where it was okay, normally if we weren't shooting 15 balls a second, and because the field's a little bit, I think it was a little bit short at the time. If the field was a little bit longer, we would definitely make a corner, but we really just got to play this pocket and play smart. And then once we get a couple kills out the break, then it's offense. And if we're down on points and they're doing the same thing to us, it's so much easier to put someone in when you're gun shooting 15 balls a second, that kind of thing. So it really just played to my strengths.
I was listening to it's called the Art of Manliness podcast, and they talk about all these different ways of, how to be a capable person, really. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that came about was this idea of building skills. How do I put this? Building skills by putting yourself in new situations. Now, the problem with building a skill in a given situation, or trying to do the same thing over and over and over and over again, is that you get really good at doing that same thing over and over again in the situation that you're doing it. So let's say you're like me, and my bread and butter is I'm running for Snake 1. That's just my power move. I'm fast. I'm not good off the break. I can do that. Well, I can do that in certain circumstances that allows me to do that. But if I'm put in a situation where it's hey, that move is kind of off the table, right? Where the one thing that I'm good at is not going to be as effective as it is in other situations. Then I'm put in a situation where it's okay, I'm effective doing the thing, but now I'm not as effective as getting in there. And now just the skill that I've built up is kind of useless. And I'm back to a different, a former square than I was in. Mm-hmm. So that's where I see a lot of what I guess just general variations in airball, what that allows, playing at different fields, playing different formats, playing all the different nuanced variations of the game that we can manage, really make huge differences in how a person has to address the situation that they're being put in. 15 balls a second and the snake's over there. Fuck, that would force a person in my position to change what they're doing. And by extension, force me to get better at a different aspect of the game, which would in turn make me better at the game.
Mm-hmm.